Round 7 of the NRL this weekend, another great round of games to come. Let's have a look through them. I'm Mathew Thompson. Tim Gilbert joins me again after a much improved tipping performance from us last week. You even got the Tigers right.
I think so, yeah. Well, I'm going to say that. Don't check the tape, but there's part of me that thinks I got the Tigers. Beautiful day as well to be tipping some winners, hopefully.
Yeah, well, every day is a good day to tip a winner, of course.
Every day above ground's a good one.
That's right. Well, we should start with Friday night because I think the Broncos are the best bet of the week again here against the Parramatta Eels. What's going on at Parramatta? You've got Moles in the Parramatta camp. What's happening?
Not that many Moles. They're just not performing, are they? And I think that it's going to take some time. They've got a new coach, obviously a new regime, and you really would be hoping you get better performances out of some of these guys that are being paid quite a fair bit of money and have played representative football. So whether or not they can match it with the Broncos, I certainly don't believe so. I think the Broncos are comfortable winners here. And that's taking into consideration the Parramatta have actually done some good things up there in the past.
Yeah, well, Chris Nunu's been dropped, but he's the only one so far that's been left out of the team after Daniel Anderson came out last week and said they're not trying. So he hasn't wanted to ring the changes too much, maybe because of a lack of depth. As far as the Broncos go, they were great against Penrith last week, and I can't see them being beaten at home. So
No,
we're 1 for 1 there for sure. I reckon you can mark that one off. The Rabbitohs versus the Sharks in a pretty difficult game to pick this one.
Yeah, it is difficult because the Rabbitohs are coming off a fairly poor performance. The Sharks, well, that was... Did you watch that game in Adelaide?
Oh,
pretty scrappy affair. I think the most positive thing to come out of that game was a return of form for Jonathan Thurston. So the Queensland selectors and Cowboy coaching staff would be pretty happy with that. I don't know, it's a toss of a coin. I'll have to go with the Rabbitohs. I like the fact Craig Wing is in there at lock, and I think they might just have enough creativity to beat the Sharks.
Well, I'm going to tip the Sharks here. I don't know why. I've got nothing to base that on, except for the fact that they're under siege, and we know Ricky Stewart, the coach, for all the criticism he cops, is a man that responds to pressure, and I think he'll have the team ready to go here. They just need to find some points somehow. They probably need a bit of luck as well. They haven't had a great deal of luck this season, the Sharks. $2.26 outsiders. And the Rabbitohs are $1.63 at the moment on Betfair. So, look, I'm just going to go with the outside of the Sharks. I don't really know why. I've just got a feeling.
Oh, you may well be right. Paul Gallen's back too, isn't he? So that's a big inclusion for them. Roosters, Dragons, this is another toss of the coin because the Roosters, well, Freddie Fittler must have been blowing up at half-time or at full-time last week about their second-half performance against the Warriors, leading 16-0 to go down to a Stacey Jones field goal, 17-16. Not the performance you would have liked in that second half. I can't pick them. I've got to stay with the Dragons despite their loss to the Knights.
Nothing wrong with getting beaten by the Knights the way they're playing.
No, they're playing good football. So the Dragons for me, they're against the Roosters, but again, another tight one.
I think the Dragons can win there as well, but I should point out too that Newcastle Dragons game last week, the in-play betting with Betfair, it is on fire. $5 the Warriors last week when they trailed 16-0. And I was watching the computer as the game was going on. 16-10 down, the Warriors hammering the Roosters line. You could still get $3.40 in play. So a lot of people did that, so they'd be pretty happy if they took the generous odds in play there about the Warriors, who were able to beat the Chookies in Golden Point extra time. Now the Storm up against the Warriors. The Storm $1.51, the Warriors $2.24 here. You'd mark this down every other year as being a Melbourne Storm win, but far from it this year. Yeah,
and I was there last year for that semi-final in Melbourne where the Warriors broke that record and they beat them, and of course we saw their... Well, you could almost call it a fairy tale run through to the semi-finals before they were beaten by Manly. I don't think they'll do it this time. Melbourne weren't good on Monday night, but I just think on their home patch, they've got to get a win like this to keep a realistic goal for that September-October football, don't they? They really need a win like this.
Second least tries in the comp, Melbourne. How can you score the second least tries in the comp with that side? Look at the back line.
And what's going to happen when representative football comes around? It's only a few weeks away, so their side's going to really struggle. They need this win badly. I think they'll get it, but I picked them with not a great deal of confidence.
Yes, well, I've made a living out of tipping the Storm at home, but I'm going to break the rule this week. I'm going to go with the Warriors. I'm starting to think that they're maybe not playing as well as a lot of people think. I think a lot of people think the Storm are just going to hit the button and things are going to come right. Well, I'm not so sure. They could well come out and win comfortably, but I'm going to tip the Warriors at the outsider's price here, so I've gone for 2 upsets so far.
Yeah, one of us is going to be a diamond, one of us is going to be a stone, there's no question, and you're doing better than me so far this year. Cowboys versus Seagulls at home at Dairy Farmers Stadium. The Cowboys did return to a bit of form in what was not a brilliant performance, but a solid performance, and some of that creativity on the rucks with Thurston and Bowen was there against the Sharks. I think Manly, no Brett Stewart. Cowboys to win at home.
Yeah, I'm with you there too as well. 12 weeks out because of injury, Brett Stewart, in a season that he'd rather forget has even existed so far. And he came back, they won 2 games. He goes out this week. They head to Townsville, which is such a notoriously hard place to play, and I think the Cowboys can get the cash against Manly there as well, which would put them in a tricky position, I have to say. I know they've now won 2 from 6, but to be 2 from 7, looking at a top 4 spot, there starts to make things a bit difficult if they get beat this week.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to go past the Cows in this.
We'll head to Sunday. The Raiders up against the Bulldogs. The Raiders $1.60 at home, the Bulldogs $2.14. These prices will get a bit better, I think, as the game starts to draw a bit closer there. The Sunday games obviously take a little bit of while for the markets to start filling up. But the Raiders, pronounced favourites, you'd have to say, at home. It seems to be the case all the time when they're taking on the Bulldogs, who are going enormous at the moment.
I've got to go the Dogs, even though Canberra's got the home ground advantage. You may well go Canberra, so we've got 3 different ones here. Are you going to go the Dogs?
On the Bulldogs.
Stick the Dogs, okay.
Yeah. A lot of injuries in that Canberra camp.
There is, and it is a graveyard. It's very difficult to play in Canberra, but you'd rather get them around late April than you would in the middle of June, I think, when the cold weather really hits. I think the Dogs are in good enough form. They absolutely pulverise Parramatta, and it's hard to think they won't get the better of Canberra.
And they get the big Jamal Idris back in the centres there as well. He's had to make a few changes because of injury, with Josh Morris gone, unfortunately, for a fair chunk of time. I think he was in line to maybe play Origin this year, Josh Morris as well.
It's the least representative football,
All right, the Tigers, they're back in form. They take on another informed team in the Knights on Sunday. $1.77 the Tigers, the Knights $2.04 outsiders. Both teams coming off wins last week. The Tigers against the Melbourne Storm, the Knights against the Dragons.
Yeah, I think Campbelltown here is a big one, and their defence on Monday night, the Tigers, was outstanding. Newcastle fought hard, didn't they, to get that win against the St George Illawarra Dragons. Yeah. Difficult, but I'll go with the Tigers at home to think that they can match their defence from last week and leave it up to Farrer and Marshall and others to provide the creativity.
Newcastle for mine, playing tough, consistent football, and I'm just finding it a bit hard to catch the Tigers at the moment. When they play well, they're just about hard to, but no team in the competition can foot it with them in attack when they're playing well. So I'm just going to go with the Knights here, but this will be a mighty close game. Then we'll head to Monday night as well. The Panthers playing host to the Titans. The Panthers at the moment about $1.86. The Titans, you'll probably get out towards $2 there during the week with the Gold Coast Titans.
Yeah, John Cartwright back home to where he grew up and played so much wonderful football for Penrith, won a premiership, represented New South Wales and Australia. He knows the place. He's just going to hope that his team can travel like they travelled to Melbourne, like they travelled to North Queensland. I've got to tip them on their form. And Penrith were pretty good, weren't they, against Brisbane? And the score wasn't a complete indication of how close they were, but they were scrappy at times, which allowed Brisbane just to keep kicking ahead. I think the Titans in this one.
Yeah, I'm with the Titans as well, after all the problems at Penrith this week too. Only a young team, and handling all the controversy around what's happened this week might pose a little bit of a problem for them as well. He's made a few changes there. Luke Walsh comes on to the bench, I think. The young halfback from Newcastle who's played a handful of games, so they might look to make some changes there, Matthew Elliott, perhaps to get that continuity in attack going, but he's not anywhere near as good a player or in near as good as former Scott Prince, Luke Walsh, because he's playing sensational, Prince.
Yeah, they'll have to find a spot for him, won't they, in the Queensland outfit, you would think.
Well, you'd have to think so.
They've never done it in the past, have they? Had Thurston, Prince and Lockyer, but I don't know, it's almost compelling. He's demanding a spot.
Maybe the Blues can borrow Scott Prince.
It'd be lovely. I'm sure they'd love to. Yeah,
someone.
Coop.
Who's your best?
My best bet of this weekend is hard to find, but I'd have to go the Cowboys in this one. At home, returned to form last week against Manly, depleted by the loss of Brett Stewart.
I'm going to have big ones here. The Warriors to beat Melbourne.
Wow.
That's my best of the week.
Okay, and it's pretty good if you get it. Absolutely brilliant if you get it.
How about that? So I'll put it out there. All right, betfair.com's the place to go to have a bet on the rugby league this weekend. Don't forget the in-play betting. We should mention the premiership too, because Manly, having won their last 2, are back equal favourites to win the comp now after drifting right out the window. $6.40 each to Melbourne and Manly. And then the Dragons are up there as well. The market's changing all the time. It's been so popular, the premiership market, and so it should be too over the first 7 rounds. There's been that much chopping and changing. The Bulldogs have firmed up again after the weekend. A little bit easier, the Gold Coast Titans at the moment. They're out a couple of dollars, but there's such a great market there, everything changing and chopping and changing all the time.
Yeah, I think the loss of Brett Stewart's going to hurt them for that premiership. And as you mentioned earlier on in this little piece, that the bottom line is with Manly, they lose one more game. Their stats to even make the 8 become really difficult. They've got to win the lion's share of their return games because they have only won a couple.
All right, have a good weekend. Enjoy the footy.